dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, brilliant listeners, language aficionados, and all-around curious minds. A very warm and enthusiastic welcome back to another exciting and, I hope, enlightening episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your enthusiastic guide on this linguistic journey, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be back here with all of you today, fully prepared and eager to delve deep into the rich, vibrant tapestry of English idioms. Together, we'll work to uncover the often surprising meanings and fascinating origins behind these captivating phrases. Sharing this exploration with you is always a definite highlight of my week.
And I'm Jack, your dedicated co-host and equally enthusiastic idiom explorer, here to add perhaps a dash of wit, a sprinkle of humor, and hopefully a few genuinely insightful comments as we navigate the sometimes winding, occasionally perplexing, but always rewarding paths of idiomatic language. It's truly fantastic to be back in the Idiom Insight studio once again, Emma, and a big, hearty hello to all our wonderful and dedicated listeners tuning in from all corners of the globe. We're so glad you could join us.
It's always such a distinct pleasure, Jack. Today, fellow idiom adventurers, we've curated a particularly captivating collection of 4 idioms specifically for you. These are expressions that you will undoubtedly hear very commonly in the English language, whether you're absorbed in watching movies or binge-watching TV series, losing yourself in the pages of books, or engaging in casual chats with native speakers. Understanding them thoroughly will significantly boost your comprehension skills and, just as importantly, provide you with more authentic, natural, and colorful ways to express your own ideas and observations.
Absolutely, Emma. I couldn't agree more. These idioms really do cover a fascinating and diverse range of interesting human situations and common observations, from exploring the dynamics of how people with similar traits group together, to describing things that are definitively and irreversibly not working, to emphatically telling someone to wait patiently, and finally, to how people eventually reveal their real underlying character. It's a very practical and truly engaging set of phrases we have for you today. So, without further ado, here are the 4 idioms we'll be meticulously exploring in this brand new episode of Idiom Insights. First on our list is a classic proverb about people with similar interests or characteristics naturally grouping together. Birds of a feather flock together. Second, we have an idiom used to describe something that is definitely, completely, and utterly dead or no longer functioning. Dead as a doornail. Third, we'll examine a common, often informal phrase used for telling someone to wait, be patient, or slow down their actions. Hold your horses. And finally, our 4th expression is used for describing the moment when someone reveals their real character, true nature, or hidden intentions. Show your true colors.
Those are all truly excellent and highly pertinent choices, Jack, each one possessing its own interesting and sometimes surprising origin story, along with its very common and specific everyday usage. I'm genuinely looking forward to discussing them in detail, exploring their nuances, and of course, hearing them used effectively in action through our dialogue examples.
Me too, Emma. They are all remarkably vivid and quite memorable phrases, aren't they? And before we dive headfirst into the fascinating details and etymology of our very first idiom, we have a quick and very heartfelt request from both of us here at the Idiom Insights team. If you're consistently finding these episodes helpful for your English learning journey, and you genuinely enjoy learning about idioms with us, please do take just a brief moment right now to subscribe or follow our podcast on your preferred listening platform.
Yes, indeed. Subscribing is undoubtedly the best and easiest way to ensure you don't miss out on any of our future episodes, all of which will be filled with even more intriguing idiomatic discoveries and explanations. And if you're feeling particularly generous and have an extra moment to spare, a simple like or a positive rating on your podcast app really does help other enthusiastic English learners from around the world discover idiom insights more easily. Your support, in whatever form it takes, truly means the world to us and unequivocally keeps us motivated and going strong.
It genuinely, truly does make a significant difference. Thank you all so much in advance for your support. Right then, Emma, are you ready to spread our metaphorical wings and fly gracefully into the meaning and implications of our first idiom for today?
Let's absolutely do it, Jack. Our first proverb for this insightful episode of Idiom Insights is the well-known and often quoted saying, "Birds of a feather flock together."
Birds of a feather flock together. This one immediately creates quite a lovely and easily understandable visual image in your mind, doesn't it? When you observe birds in nature, different types of birds like sparrows, robins, or pigeons usually tend to stick with their own kind, forming distinct flocks. So, what does this proverb actually mean when we apply it to human beings and their social interactions, Emma?
That's a great way to approach it and to visualize the core meaning, Jack. The proverb, "Birds of a feather flock together," essentially means that people who share similar characters, possess common interests, have comparable tastes in things like music or fashion, or come from similar backgrounds or social circles, tend to naturally associate with each other. They are drawn to one another and instinctively group together precisely because they have these significant things in common.
So it's fundamentally about the observation of how people with shared traits, common interests, or similar outlooks on life are often drawn to each other, and as a result, tend to form social groups, close friendships, or even romantic partnerships. For instance, if you observe a group of people who all absolutely love the same specific genre of music, or who all passionately enjoy the same, rather niche hobby, you might aptly comment, "Birds of a feather flock together," because their shared passion or interest is the very thing that clearly brings them together and unites them.
Exactly. That's a perfect illustration. Or similarly, if you notice that all the individuals within a particular social circle or clique happen to have very similar personalities. Perhaps they're all incredibly outgoing, thrill-seeking, and adventurous. Or conversely, maybe they're all very quiet, introspective, and studious. You could certainly use this proverb to explain why they choose to hang out together so frequently. Their similar feathers, or in other words, their shared characteristics, naturally make them flock, or gather and associate with one another.
It makes a lot of intuitive sense when you put it like that. As human beings, we naturally gravitate towards people who seem to understand us, who share our perspectives on important matters, or who simply enjoy doing the same things that we do. It's a very common and widely recognized observation about fundamental aspects of human nature and social dynamics, isn't it? But is it always used in a purely positive or neutral way, or can it have other connotations?
That's an important distinction to make. It can certainly be used in a completely neutral, purely observational way, just as you described. However, it's also true that sometimes it can be used with a slightly negative or even critical implication, especially if the feathers or the shared traits being observed are considered undesirable, negative, or socially unacceptable. For example, if a group of people who are widely known for causing trouble or engaging in antisocial behavior are always seen together, someone might remark, with a hint of disapproval, "Well, birds of a feather flock together," thereby implying that their shared negative traits or bad habits are precisely what unites them. So, as with many idioms, the specific context and the speaker's tone are very important in determining the exact nuance.
Right, I see that distinction now. So, it generally means that people with similar characteristics, values, or interests tend to form groups and associate with one another. But the overall connotation, whether it's positive, neutral, or negative, can indeed vary depending on the situation and the nature of those shared feathers. For example, if a group of talented artists always meet up at the same local cafe to discuss their work, it's likely a positive or neutral observation. Conversely, if a group of known troublemakers or petty criminals are always seen congregating together, the phrase might be said with a sigh of resignation or a note of criticism.
Precisely, Jack. You've captured the nuance perfectly. The core, undeniable meaning is always about inherent similarity, leading directly to association and group formation.
Okay, I think I have a good grasp of that one. So, to reiterate, birds of a feather flock together means that people with similar characteristics, passions, interests, or backgrounds tend to seek each other out and associate with each other. Are you ready now to hear our familiar characters, Mia and Mark, use this insightful proverb in their conversation?
Let's absolutely listen in. I wonder what specific group of people they might be discussing and what feathers unite them.
Hey Mark, have you happened to notice how all the members of that new local cycling club seem to be really truly obsessed with collecting vintage bicycles and wearing only retro cycling gear? It's quite striking. Every single time I see them out and about, they're all dressed in remarkably similar old-fashioned outfits and proudly riding those rather elegant, old-fashioned bicycles.
Oh, I know exactly who you mean, Mia. Yes, it's quite a distinctive look, isn't it? They're practically a fixture, always together at the main park on Saturday and Sunday mornings, meticulously comparing their classic, restored bikes and enthusiastically talking about sourcing rare, period-correct parts. It's like a mobile museum.
It's quite funny, isn't it, when you think about it? They all clearly share that very specific, perhaps slightly niche, passion for vintage cycling. And it really does seem like that shared interest is precisely what brought them all together in the first place. None of my other friends are even remotely interested in that kind of thing. They'd probably find it quite dull.
Well, Mia, you know what they always say, birds of a feather flock together. It makes perfect logical sense that people with such a specific and dedicated niche interest would naturally find each other, connect, and then form a group or a club where they can freely share their boundless enthusiasm and knowledge. They probably have an endless amount of things to talk about and compare.
That's undoubtedly true. And it's actually quite nice, I think, that they've managed to find a supportive community of genuinely like-minded people who understand their passion. It just clearly goes to show how deeply shared interests and common passions can really create strong, lasting bonds between individuals.
That was a truly perfect and very natural example of the idiom being used in a completely neutral, purely observational way. Mia and Mark were discussing a group of people who were clearly brought together by a very specific and shared interest, their love for vintage cycling. And Mark very aptly used the proverb to explain why they naturally gravitated towards each other and formed a distinct group.
Exactly. His use of the idiom effectively highlighted that their common feathers, in this case their shared passion for vintage bikes and cycling culture, were the driving force that made them flock together. It wasn't intended to be critical or judgmental in any way, merely an astute observation about how common interests often lead to the creation of communities and social circles.
It's an incredibly common and very well understood proverb across many English-speaking cultures, isn't it?
It really is. A timeless piece of folk wisdom. So the next time you observe a group of people who clearly and demonstrably share similar interests, values, hobbies, or characteristics, remember the insightful saying, "Birds of a feather flock together."
And for our listeners, we'd absolutely love to hear about a time you've personally seen birds of a feather flocking together. What were their specific shared feathers that united them? Please share your interesting examples and observations in the comments section below this episode.
That's a great idea, Jack. Let's smoothly transition now to our second idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one, as you hinted earlier, sounds rather final and definitive.
Indeed it does. Our second idiom today is the rather stark phrase, dead as a doornail.
Dead as a doornail. That's certainly a very strong and unambiguous image. What exactly does it mean for something, or even someone, to be dead as a doornail, Jack? And I have to ask, why a doornail of all inanimate objects? It's a curious choice.
It is indeed a very emphatic and unequivocal idiom, Emma. To say that something is dead as a doornail means that it is unquestionably, completely, utterly, and irreversibly dead. There's absolutely no doubt about it whatsoever. While it can certainly be used for living things like plants or animals that have sadly died, it's also very commonly and effectively used for machines, gadgets, or electronic devices that are completely broken and entirely non-functional, or even for abstract things like ideas, plans, or hopes that have absolutely no chance of succeeding or coming to fruition.
So its primary function is to emphasize the absolute certainty of death, complete non-functionality, or utter failure. It means completely and utterly finished, beyond any hope of revival. But the doornail part still piques my curiosity. Why specifically a doornail? As you know, doornails aren't alive to begin with, so the comparison seems a bit odd at first glance.
That's a very astute question, Emma. The precise origin of this phrase is, as with many old idioms, a little bit debated among etymologists. However, one popular and plausible theory is that in the past, particularly in carpentry and construction, Large-headed nails, often specifically called door nails, were hammered through heavy wooden doors and then firmly clenched or bent over on the other side of the door. This was done to secure them very firmly and prevent them from working loose. Once a nail was clenched in such a manner, it was virtually impossible to remove and reuse. It was effectively dead in terms of its future usefulness for any other purpose. Another, perhaps simpler idea is just that doornails, being sturdy, inanimate metal objects, are inherently very dead. Whatever the exact historical origin, the doornail part undoubtedly adds a layer of emphasis and finality, making it sound even more definitive and conclusive than just saying something is dead.
That explanation about the clenching of the nail makes a lot of sense. The compelling idea of something being rendered irreversibly out of use and beyond salvage. So for a practical example, if your old, trusty laptop suddenly stops working completely and you absolutely can't turn it on, no matter what troubleshooting steps you try, you might frustratedly exclaim, "Well, I think this ancient laptop is finally dead as a doornail." This would clearly mean it's completely broken beyond any hope of economical repair.
Precisely. That's a perfect modern application. Or if a cherished plant in your garden has completely withered, dried up and turned brown, showing no discernible sign of life despite your best efforts to revive it, you'd correctly describe it as being dead as a doornail. Similarly, if a new business idea receives absolutely no funding from investors and garners no support from potential customers, someone involved might reluctantly declare the entire project dead as a doornail, signifying that it has absolutely no chance of ever moving forward or becoming a reality. It's undeniably a very definitive and often disheartening statement.
It certainly conveys a very strong and unmistakable sense of absolute finality and the complete absence of any hope of revival or recovery. This applies equally whether you're talking about a living thing that has passed away, an inanimate object that is broken beyond repair, or even an abstract concept like a plan or a dream that has failed.
So, to summarize succinctly, dead as a doornail means completely and unquestionably dead, irreparably broken, or irretrievably finished, with absolutely no hope of revival, recovery, or future use. Are you ready now to hear Mia and Mark use this very final sounding and rather gloomy idiom in their conversation?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder what unfortunate thing has met its untimely end in their particular scenario this time.
Oh no, Mia, I think we have a really serious problem with the trusty old office coffee machine this morning. I've been patiently trying to get it to work for the last 10 minutes, pressing all the buttons, but absolutely nothing's happening. It's completely unresponsive.
Really, Mark? That's not good news for our caffeine levels. What seems to be wrong with it? Did you double-check if it's properly plugged into the wall socket? Or perhaps it just needs more water in the reservoir or fresh coffee beans in the hopper? Those are usually the simple fixes.
I've meticulously checked everything I can think of, Mia. It's definitely plugged in securely. The power light at the socket is on. It's completely full of fresh water and plenty of beans. But when I press the main power button on the machine itself, there's no welcoming light, no familiar grinding sound, absolutely nothing at all. I've even tried unplugging it for a minute and then plugging it back in, jiggling all the switches and dials, but there's absolutely no response from it whatsoever. It's like a brick.
That does sound pretty bad, I have to admit. Did it make any strange sputtering noises? Or emit any unusual smells before it completely stopped working yesterday or this morning?
Not that I noticed, no. It was working perfectly fine yesterday afternoon when I made the last cup, but today it just seems completely and utterly unresponsive no matter what I do. I truly hate to say it, Mia, but I think this reliable old coffee machine, after all its years of faithful service, is finally officially dead as a doornail. I suspect we might need to start looking into purchasing a new one, unfortunately.
Oh dear, that is bad news. If it's truly dead as a doornail, our mornings here in the office are going to be significantly tougher and less productive until we can get a replacement. That's a real shame. It served us so well for so long.
That dialogue perfectly and vividly illustrates the intended use of the idiom. Mark clearly described trying every possible remedy to get the coffee machine to work, but it remained completely unresponsive to all his efforts. This led him to the sad but firm conclusion that it was dead as a doornail, meaning it was utterly broken beyond any simple or economical fixes.
Exactly. His use of the idiom powerfully conveyed the absolute finality of the situation. The beloved machine wasn't just temporarily out of order or experiencing a minor glitch. It was completely finished, kaput, the phrase effectively emphasizes that there's no hope left for its revival.
It's an incredibly common and highly graphic way to describe something that is unequivocally beyond repair, beyond hope, or beyond revival. Very effective in its imagery.
It really is a potent phrase. So, the next time you encounter something, be it a device, a plan, or unfortunately, even a living thing, that is completely broken, irretrievably finished, or unequivocally dead, remember the Stark idiom, dead as a doornail.
And of course, we'd be very interested to hear from our listeners about a time you might have used this particular idiom, or perhaps something you've encountered in your life that was unfortunately dead as a doornail. Please share your relevant examples or stories in the comments section below this episode.
That's a great idea, Jack. Let's move smoothly on now to our third interesting idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one, in contrast to the last, often advises patience and a slower pace.
Indeed, it does. Our third idiom for today is the lively and often exclaimed phrase, hold your horses.
Hold your horses! This immediately sounds like something you'd shout quite urgently to someone who is riding a horse perhaps too fast or recklessly. What does it actually mean when we use it in everyday, non-equestrian conversation, Jack?
That's exactly the vivid image it originates from, Emma. Try to imagine someone on a spirited horse that's about to bolt unexpectedly or is trying to run off too quickly before the rider's ready. You'd instinctively tell them to hold your horses, meaning quite literally, to pull back firmly on the reins, to restrain the horses, to make them wait or slow down their pace. In everyday modern conversation, the idiom hold your horses means wait a moment, slow down a bit, don't be so terribly impatient, or don't act or decide too quickly without thinking.
So it's effectively a call for patience, a moment of pause, or an appeal for caution. It's often used to tell someone to stop and think carefully before rushing headlong into something, or sometimes just to simply wait for a more appropriate moment. For instance, if someone is about to make a very quick, impulsive decision, perhaps a significant purchase, without thoroughly considering all the available options or potential consequences, you might gently advise them, hold your horses there. Let's just think about this carefully for a few minutes before we commit to anything.
Precisely. That's a perfect example of its common usage. Or if children are getting overly excited and extremely impatient to rip open their birthday presents, a parent might say in a calm but firm tone, hold your horses, everyone. We'll open all the presents after we finish eating dinner. It's a clear instruction telling them to wait, to curb their understandable enthusiasm for just a little while longer. It often implies that the person or people being addressed are being a bit too hasty, overly eager, or perhaps not thinking things through sufficiently.
It's generally a friendly, quite informal way to tell someone to pause or take a breath. It's not usually meant harshly or aggressively, more like a gentle, sometimes humorous, reminder to slow down, be patient, or consider things more carefully. It can be used when someone is physically rushing around, or when they are mentally rushing into a decision, an action, a judgment, or a conclusion without all the facts.
You might also find it useful if someone is about to interrupt you before you've had a chance to finish speaking or make your point fully. If they impatiently jump in with a question or comment a bit too soon, you could politely but firmly say, hold your horses for a second. I haven't quite finished explaining my point yet.
That's another excellent example of its versatility. At its heart, it's really about asking for a brief moment of pause, restraint, or thoughtful consideration before proceeding.
So, to summarize this one clearly, hold your horses means please wait a moment, kindly slow down, try not to be so impatient, or let's not act too quickly or rashly. Are you ready now to hear Mia and Mark use this lively idiom in their interaction?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder who is being particularly impatient in their conversation this time and needs to slow down.
Okay, Mark, listen to this. I've just found this absolutely amazing, incredible last-minute holiday deal online. It's for a whole week in a luxury resort in Italy, completely all-inclusive. Flights, gorgeous hotel, all meals, everything. And it's a staggering 50% off the usual price. But, and this is the catch, the offer officially ends in precisely 1 hour. We absolutely have to book it right now, this very second. Quick! Give me your credit card details so I can secure it.
Whoa there, Mia. Just hold your horses for a minute. That does indeed sound absolutely fantastic. And you know how much I love Italy. but we can't just impulsively book an entire international holiday in literally 5 minutes without even thinking about it or discussing the practicalities. That's crazy.
But Mark, the offer ends in less than an hour. We'll completely miss out on this unbelievable bargain if we don't act super fast. Think of the savings.
I understand perfectly that it's a limited time offer, Mia, and the discount is tempting. However, we really do need to check a few very important things first before we commit any money. For example, can we actually get that specific week off work? What are the recent online reviews like for that particular hotel? Are there any sneaky hidden fees or extra charges mentioned in the small print? Let's just take a sensible 10 minutes to look into it all properly and rationally before we commit hundreds, maybe thousands of pounds? Seriously, hold your horses. A supposedly great deal isn't actually great at all if it doesn't genuinely work for us or our schedules.
Okay, Mark, you're absolutely right. I admit I got a little bit carried away by the excitement of the huge discount and the thought of pasta. It's much more sensible to check all the details thoroughly. Let's quickly look it up together, but we still need to be pretty fast about it if we want to catch it.
That dialogue perfectly and amusingly illustrates the idiom in action. Mia was clearly rushing headlong to book the holiday deal without any prior thought or planning, driven by the fear of missing out. Mark very appropriately used "hold your horses" to tell her to slow down significantly, wait a moment, and carefully consider all the crucial details before making a potentially costly and hasty decision.
Exactly. It was a clear and necessary call for patience and caution from Mark, especially in the face of Mia's understandable eagerness and the added pressure of the rapidly expiring limited-time offer. It effectively showed the idiom being used to prevent a rash, ill-considered action.
It's a very common, generally good-natured and friendly way to ask someone to pause, take a breath, or simply be less impatient and more considered in their approach.
It truly is. So, the next time you find yourself needing to tell someone, or perhaps even yourself, to wait a moment, slow down their pace, or not be so hasty in their judgments or actions, remember the vivid and effective idiom, "hold your horses."
And for our listeners, we'd be delighted to hear about a time you either had to tell someone else to hold their horses, or perhaps a memorable occasion when someone told you to do the same. What were the circumstances? Please share your stories and experiences in the comments section below the episode.
That's a wonderful idea, Jack. Always great to get listener input. Now, we've smoothly arrived at our fourth and final idiom for this particular episode of Idiom Insights. This one, as you mentioned at the start, is all about the fascinating process of revealing true character.
Indeed it is. Our final idiom for today is the insightful and often revealing expression, "show your true colors."
Show your true colors. This phrase immediately sounds like it's about revealing something that was previously hidden or concealed, doesn't it? Like uncovering the real nature or essence of something, perhaps something quite different from what was initially seen or perceived by others.
You're absolutely spot on with that intuition, Emma. To show your true colors means to reveal your real, underlying character, your genuine nature, your actual personality, or your hidden intentions, especially when these aspects are significantly different from, or perhaps even contradictory to, how you previously appeared to be or how you presented yourself to the world. Quite often, though not exclusively, this idiom is used when someone's real character turns out to be negative, unpleasant, or less admirable than the initial impression they first gave.
So it strongly implies a distinct contrast, often a disappointing one, between an initial, perhaps carefully constructed outward appearance and the underlying authentic reality of a person. For instance, someone might consistently pretend to be exceptionally kind, generous, and helpful to everyone around them. But then, when faced with a genuinely difficult or challenging situation where their help is truly needed, they might act entirely selfishly, inconsiderately, and unkindly. In doing so, they effectively show their true colors. The colors in the idiom metaphorically represent their real, unvarnished self.
Exactly. That's a perfect explanation. The origin of this particular idiom is widely thought to be nautical, from the age of sailing ships. Ships in those days used to fly flags, also known as colors, to clearly identify their nationality or allegiance. A pirate ship, for example, might deceitfully fly the flag of a friendly or neutral nation to allow it to get dangerously close to an unsuspecting merchant ship. Then, when they were strategically positioned and ready to attack, They would quickly lower the false flag and dramatically hoist their own pirate flag, thereby showing their true colors, which in this case were their hostile and predatory intentions.
That's a truly fascinating and very fitting origin story, and it really helps to explain the element of deception or misrepresentation that is often associated with this idiom. So, it's frequently used in situations where someone who initially seemed good, trustworthy, or admirable turns out, upon closer inspection or under pressure, to be bad, deceitful, unreliable, or malicious. For example, a politician might make many wonderful promises about all the good things they will do before an important election. However, after being successfully elected, they might act in a corrupt or self-serving way, thus clearly showing their true colors to the disappointed electorate.
Precisely. And while it is true that it can occasionally be used in a more neutral or even a positive way, for example, someone who initially seemed very shy and reserved might, in a crisis, show their true colors as a brave, decisive, and capable leader. It is far more commonly used when the true colors being revealed are predominantly negative, disappointing, or disillusioning. The idiom strongly implies that the person in question was perhaps deliberately hiding their real self, their less palatable traits, or their ulterior motives.
So, to take another example, if a friend who has always seemed incredibly supportive and loyal suddenly betrays your trust or lets you down badly, especially when it clearly benefits them to do so, they are, in that moment, unequivocally showing their true colors. It's often a painful moment of revelation, a stark realization about who they really are deep down.
Exactly. It's like the carefully maintained mask finally slips or is forcibly removed by circumstances, and the real, unadulterated person underneath is seen clearly, perhaps for the very first time.
So, to put it concisely, show your true colors means to reveal your real, authentic character, personality, beliefs, or intentions, especially when these are negative, unappealing, or significantly different from what was previously shown or perceived. Are you ready now to hear Mia and Mark use this insightful idiom in their conversation?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder who in their story might be revealing their less than perfect, or perhaps even quite unpleasant character.
You know, Mark, I have to admit, I was really genuinely impressed with that new colleague of ours, David. When he first started working with us a few months ago, he seemed so incredibly helpful and proactive, always offering to assist other team members with their tasks and consistently saying all the right, supportive things in team meetings. He made a great first impression.
Oh yeah, David. I vaguely remember you saying he seemed like a great addition to the team back then. So, what's changed your opinion of him? Has something happened?
Well, as you know, we had that really high pressure, incredibly important project last week with that almost impossible deadline hanging over us. And when things got really tough and stressful and everyone was feeling the strain, David completely changed his tune and his behavior. He started subtly, then overtly, blaming other people for any delays or problems that arose. He flat out refused to help anyone else with their parts of the project, even when they were struggling. And he only seemed focused on making himself look good to the senior manager, even if it meant unfairly throwing other colleagues under the bus to do so.
Wow, Mia, that's not good at all. That sounds quite manipulative. So he wasn't actually so helpful and collaborative when the real pressure was on and it truly mattered?
Not in the slightest. It was like a switch just flipped inside him. He really, truly showed his true colors last week for all to see. It turns out he's definitely not the dedicated team player he initially pretended to be when he joined. He's actually quite selfish, calculating, and pretty ruthless when it suits his own agenda. It was very disappointing and quite disillusioning to witness, I must say.
That is incredibly disappointing, Mia. It's often in those really difficult, high-stakes situations that people unfortunately show their true colors, isn't it? At least now you know what he's really like underneath the polished exterior.
That dialogue clearly and effectively demonstrates the typical usage of the idiom. David initially presented a very positive and appealing image to his colleagues. However, when placed under significant pressure, his less pleasant, more selfish, and manipulative nature was revealed. He unequivocally showed his true colors.
Exactly. The idiom was used perfectly by Mia to describe the unwelcome revelation of his real, negative character traits, which had previously been skillfully hidden or suppressed. It powerfully captured that distinct sense of disappointment, disillusionment, and the stark realization of seeing someone for who they truly are, rather than who they pretended to be.
It's an incredibly common and highly expressive idiom, perfectly suited for those often unwelcome moments of revelation about someone's character.
It certainly is. So, the next time you witness someone revealing their real and often disappointing or shocking character, intentions, or motives, remember the potent idiom, show your true colors.
And of course, we'd be fascinated to hear from our listeners about a time you perhaps saw someone show their true colors. What happened to reveal their authentic self? Please share your anonymous, if preferred, examples and stories in the comments section below this episode.
We always genuinely appreciate your insights and contributions. Well, Jack, that brings us to the end of another productive session. We've successfully explored and demystified 4 more really useful and commonly encountered idioms in this episode of Idiom Insights.
We certainly have, Emma. It's been another thoroughly enjoyable and, I trust, informative journey for our listeners. Just to quickly recap the key idioms for everyone who has been tuning into Idiom Insights today, we learned:
First, birds of a feather flock together, which, as we discussed, means that people with similar or shared interests, characteristics, or backgrounds tend to naturally associate with each other and form groups.
Second was dead as a doornail, an emphatic idiom meaning something is completely and unquestionably dead, irreparably broken, or irretrievably finished, with no hope of revival.
Third, we covered hold your horses, a common informal phrase meaning to wait a moment, slow down, exercise patience, or not be so impatient or hasty in one's actions or decisions.
And finally, we explored show your true colors, which means to reveal one's real underlying character, true nature, or hidden intentions, especially when these are negative or significantly different from a previously projected appearance.
That's 4 more fantastic and highly practical phrases to add to your ever-expanding English vocabulary toolkit. Remember, listeners, the very best way to truly make these idioms your own and use them confidently is to actively listen for them in various contexts, and then bravely try to use them appropriately in your own conversations and writing.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to experiment and practice. The more you consciously use these idioms, the more comfortable, natural, and fluent you'll become with them over time.
And if you genuinely enjoyed learning with us today, and we sincerely and wholeheartedly hope that you did, please do consider giving this episode of Idiom Insights a quick like or a thumbs up, and perhaps even leaving us a positive review on your podcast platform of choice. Your invaluable support really does help other dedicated English learners find our show.
And please make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button for Idiom Insights right now so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes, where we'll continue our exciting mission to demystify the wonderful, quirky, and often surprising world of English idioms together.
Thank you all so very much for joining us today and for dedicating your time to learn with us. It's truly been a distinct pleasure exploring these fascinating phrases with all of you.
Keep learning with curiosity and enthusiasm. Keep listening attentively, and we'll look forward to catching you next time on Idiom Insights.
Goodbye for now, everyone. Happy idiom learning.
See ya. Take care.